Que viva el mariachi, que viva el mariachi, que viva el mariachi. Ahora mariachi, cómpale con ganas cansados. ¡Oye! Mensajeros para quitar las penas, con sus trompetas, violines y guitarras, el guitarrón que llega al corazón, el mundo entero los aclama con amor. Es por eso que yo les rindo homenaje.
Once familiar only to the people of Mexico, mariachi music has gained global popularity.
What is it about mariachi music that brings people from all over the world together?
Y es una música que cura, una música que es medicina. Eso es lo bueno de la música del mariachi, porque es alegre, muy difícil, pero muy bonita.
Mariachi historian Jonathan Clark suggests that mariachi music has an appeal that goes beyond Mexico's borders.
There's universal attraction that mariachi music has. The charro suit, the mariachi singing, the trumpet. There's a certain attraction that transcends language and cultural barriers.
Mariachi music is celebration, dance, and camaraderie. It's music for any type of occasion. One reason mariachi fits so many different moods is because of the tremendous variety of songs they play.
Originally, the mariachi only had a small handful of genres that they performed. The son, some jarabes, corridos, and what we call today the canción ranchera.
Me cansé de rogarle con el llanto en los ojos. Alcé mi copa y brindé por ella. No podía despreciarme. Era el último brindis de un bohemio.
But when mariachis migrated to Mexico City and had to satisfy a different clientele, is really when the mariachi started adopting new genres, very foreign to the original mariachi. Originally, mariachis didn't play huapangos. Huapangos is from the Huastecan region, where they don't have mariachis. That was something that was adopted in Mexico City. Same thing with the bolero. And then the clásicas. Mariachi started playing pieces that the orquestas típicas performed. The same polkas, the same paso doble, which was originally performed by an orchestra at the bullfights. The mariachi was obligated to learn and start interpreting those. If a mariachi got hired to play at a bullfight, well, it's only natural that they were going to be asked to play bullfight songs. The same thing with later on, you had South American, like the cumbia, which is immensely popular today. A lot of different South American genres, and the romantic music was later adopted by the mariachi, and the mariachi made it its own. The Venezuelan joropo is a very good example. La Bikina kind of started that craze. This South American rhythm that was adapted to the mariachi. And mariachis everywhere had to learn it, and it required a new technique.
caminando mira sin vernos jamás. Estas son las Mariachis. Hoy por ser día de su santo, se las cantamos aquí. Despierta, mi bien, despierta. Mira que ya amaneció.
Well, the lyrics are about all facets of life. The canción ranchera, which is the song that is, where there's the largest body of music. The number one theme, of course, is some kind of betrayed love, the emotions that come with the betrayal of love. But there are songs about the landscape, about the natural beauty. There's songs about rural life. There are songs about famous people, about infamous people. There are songs about specific events.
The mariachi is kind of a human jukebox. The mariachi plays whatever people request of it. If a person requests a song more than once, the mariachi goes out and tries to learn it.
When you think about all the different genres that have become standard for mariachi musicians, you can't overstate their musical versatility. In a society where young men and women were kept apart, the serenata was a means of communication by which a young man could send a message of love to the woman of his heart.
One of their best sources of work are the serenatas, which you play outdoors under the balcony. Sometimes they invite you in, sometimes they don't.
It's natural when music becomes popular for many to claim creative ownership.
The mariachi is traditionally associated with Jalisco. However, keep in mind that when mariachi music was evolving, Jalisco did not exist as a political entity. There was no state of Jalisco. Those lines were drawn up much later. And if you draw a circle around Jalisco, it takes in, 5 or 6 other states. Where is the mariachi from? As Silvestre Vargas used to always say when he was asked that, Vargas would reply, "Wouldn't it be great if we knew?" But he said, "I don't know. My father didn't know, and I have no idea." Well, I think that was an accurate reply, and I don't think we'll ever know where the mariachi comes from.
For many years, it was believed that the word mariachi was derived from the French word mariage, meaning marriage. Documentary evidence found in church archives now shows that the word was in use previous to the arrival of the French in 1862. In 1852, Father Cosme Santa Anna wrote to his bishop complaining about the mariachis who played across the street from his church in Rosa Morada, Nayarit. In 1859, Father Ignacio Aguilar wrote a description of a mariachi he observed performing at a religious festivity in Tlachapa, Guerrero.
The word mariachi has been found as a place name, as the name of settlements, as early as the 1830s. The theory that the word mariachi comes from the French word mariage is pretty much considered obsolete and disproved.
But no matter the origin of the word, mariachi music is exciting and enchanting and can be heard almost anywhere in the world.
Que la música del mariachi es la única que se escucha en todo el mundo. En su medio lenguaje, por el idioma, ya sea en Egipto, ya sea en Japón, ya sea en Alemania, en Italia, donde quiera que yo he estado, siempre he escuchado personas que cantan la canción mexicana. Yo, en lo particular, tuve la satisfacción de llevarla a todas las capitales del mundo, ya que junto con el Mariachi Vargas, ya saber que yo fui el solista del Mariachi Vargas de Tecalitlán durante 30 años.
Si existe un motivo, y hasta puede esperarse un consuelo en la fantasía.
Rural mariachi groups rarely played outside their own geographic regions. Only two mariachis, the groups of Justo Villa and Cesario Medina, are known to have played in Mexico City before the Mexican Revolution of 1910.
The mariachi we know today is the urban mariachi, as distinguished from the rural mariachi. You could probably draw a dividing line pre-revolution and post-revolution. The two acknowledged pioneers of the Mexico City urban mariachi tradition are Concho Andrade and Cirilo Marmolejo. In the mid-20s, a cantina opened up called Salón Tenampa in what's known as Plaza Garibaldi. People from Jalisco would congregate there in Mexico City, and they featured mariachi music. And from those two groups, pretty soon, the word got out, and a third mariachi came to Mexico City, and a fourth, and until you had, by the 30s, maybe 7 or 8 mariachis in Garibaldi. And it just grew from there. Today, you have probably over 200 ensembles working in the Plaza Garibaldi, say, during the course of a week.
The earliest mariachis in Mexico City were almost all from Cocula. But the group that was to make the greatest impact in the evolution of mariachi music was Mariachi Vargas from the southern Jalisco village of Tecalitlan.
I have read articles claiming that Mariachi Vargas went from Tecalitlan to Mexico City and got instant applause and instant fame, from that moment. I had the privilege of knowing a number of the members who made that trek in 1934. And they said nothing like that happened. They almost starved to death. And it was very difficult for them to eke out an existence, especially for an unknown group. And keep in mind, the Cocula groups dominated. People, what little clientele there was for mariachi in Mexico City preferred the Cocula groups. The mariachi in vogue was Mariachi Tapatio, led by Jose Marmolejo. They were on all the movies. They had the best radio programs. They accompanied the most prestigious singers. They made recordings. What saved Mariachi Vargas in the early years was a salaried position, which they were one of the official musical groups of the Mexico City Police Department. And that salary allowed them to stay in Mexico City. Otherwise, Silvestre told me they definitely would have had to return to Tecalitlan, in defeat. When Silvestre Vargas arrived in Mexico City in December of 1934, it took Vargas at least a decade to occupy the position that Marmolejo had.
Two important additions to the group were crucial to Mariachi Vargas's rise to fame.
He would have preferred his mariachi as a string band, but the trend was for trumpets, and there was such a demand for the trumpet that he was forced to add one to his group. And he had the fortune and the vision of adding the man who would become the greatest mariachi trumpet player of all time, Miguel Martinez.
Vargas se dedicó a buscar trompetas, pero nunca vino conmigo. Él buscó unos buenos, pero no gustaron, porque no se acoplaban al mariachi. Yo ya era mariachi, y entonces a mí me llevó Vargas de prueba a XW, y en esa prueba duré 30 años con Mariachi Vargas.
Martinez remains the most influential instrumentalist in mariachi music. As a musical figure, his influence is perhaps exceeded by that of only one individual, Rubén Fuentes.
Rubén Fuentes joined Mariachi Vargas in 1944, never having played in a mariachi before in his life. He quickly mastered the mariachi style. Fuentes had been a violinist, pianist, even played the accordion in his father's orchestra in Ciudad Guzman. he was able to take that formal musical training and the mariachi experience and synthesize the two better than anyone had ever done. Some people would say better than anyone to date. Fuentes really set the standard and defined mariachi orchestration, arrangement, and performance practice in the 1950s.
When Lázaro Cárdenas campaigned to become president of Mexico in 1934, he appropriated the wave of interest in all things Mexican, paintings, crafts, and music that came from the Mexican people. Mariachi musicians began to gain recognition. In the 1930s, thanks mainly to radio, audiences throughout the Spanish-speaking world began listening to mariachi music for the first time. Mexican cinema brought mariachi music to an even larger audience. Mariachis had appeared in films since the silent movie days, but in 1936, a film called Allá en el Rancho Grande precipitated a craze for Western-themed movies, most of which featured a mariachi group. The popularity of mariachi music continued to grow. Long before radio and cinema, Mexico enjoyed a rich musical heritage.
You could make a case for the mariachi being born almost from the moment Cortés stepped upon the shore of Mexico in 1519. Because in his entourage, he had musicians to entertain the troops. And among their instruments were members of the violin family, the guitar family, and the harp. So you've almost got a mariachi right there.
Most mariachi groups consist of anywhere from 6 to 12 musicians and include a guitarrón, vihuela, guitar, violins, trumpets, and occasionally a harp. Essential to the rhythm section are the vihuela and guitarrón with their backs shaped like the hull of a boat. The guitarrón is the lowest pitched instrument in the ensemble and provides the bass line of the mariachi. The vihuela is a small 5-string instrument which provides harmony and a high-pitched, crisp, percussive rhythm that augments the guitarrón. The mariachi guitar is a standard 6-string classic Spanish guitar that rounds out the sound of the vihuela. The harp is also a rhythm instrument that sometimes takes the melody. Mariachis use standard European violins, most often playing in 3-part harmony. A standard B-flat trumpet is the most recent permanent addition to the mariachi group. Although the cornet had been introduced to the mariachi early in the century, the trumpet didn't become widely used by mariachis until the 1930s and 40s. In the 1950s, Pepe Villa and his group, Mariachi Mexico, popularized the use of 2 trumpets. Since then, no new instruments have gained general acceptance in the mariachi group.
I believe that if the trumpet hadn't been added to the mariachi wouldn't enjoy the popularity it does today. It added additional voice to the mariachi, another facet, and allowed the mariachi to be more flexible and interpret more genres of music.
It is the blending of these instruments that makes mariachi music so unique. There is a distinction between a mariachi show group and a working mariachi group. A show group plays a limited repertoire, which means they can refine their stage performance, which will be highly polished and tightly rehearsed. The working mariachi playing in bars and cantinas is invisible to the public at large. But it's these hard-working musicians who help perpetuate this music. They keep it alive.
The working mariachi's emphasis is fulfilling requests and being able to play thousands and thousands of songs. Maybe none of them really tight, but being able to play reasonable rendition of just about whatever anyone asks for.
While such collaborations are not universally accepted, mariachis occasionally play in concert with world-famous symphonies and as an accompaniment to a variety of artists, including opera singers.
El Mariachi Vargas ahorita es un artista solista y nos hemos dado el lujo de grabar con una sinfónica donde somos los solistas y tenemos una orquesta de 100 músicos atrás.
One of the elements adding to the success of mariachi music was adopting the traje de charro. Early mariachis didn't try to dress alike.
They had no uniform. The concept of uniforming, of dressing in a like manner, probably didn't even occur to them. They would either wear maybe their better clothes to play at a fiesta, or something. They would wear calzón blanco, a white rough muslin cloth, which was what Indians and peasants would wear, in Mexico during the 19th century. The widespread acceptance of the mariachi has to do with that change in image. You had mariachis migrating to Mexico City, making more money than they could have in their hometown, and for the first time having the option or the possibility of purchasing some kind of a uniform, a charro uniform. The mariachis borrowed the charro uniform from the rhinestone cowboys. The traje de gala, which is like what I'm wearing, the mariachi suit with the full botonadura, the silver adornments and all that, was the most elegant of all of the equestrian outfits associated with horsemanship in Mexico.
The one thing that I personally love about mariachi is that I guess there are few things that represent Mexicanismo more than being a mariachi. I mean, you have your typical, image of what a Mexicano is with a sombrero ancho, with his traje de charro, with his guitar, singing. It's a very a Mexicano thing. You have also the Mexican macho image, but at the same time you have that Mexican male sensuality that is not always seen. So you have this dual image coming in one person.
I love the look of being a mariachi. I know that I transform into a new person, a different person. It's me, but it's a different me as soon as I put my suit on. And it just gives me more sense of who I am.
Buenos días. Hola, buenos días. ¿Cómo están? ¿Cómo está? Buenos días. ¿Qué tal? Buenos días. ¿Cómo estás? Hola. Muy bien. Hola, ¿qué tal? Hola, señor Tel. ¿Cómo está? Trabajando, mira. ¿Podemos ayudar en algo?
Sí, estábamos buscando a ver si nos podía medir por unos trajes.
Claro que sí. Qué bonito, sí. Desde los pines, este material.
Sí, material muy fino.
Muy fino, material muy...
¿Se le apunta la chamarra?
Sí.
20 y medio.
Ok,
aquí les espero en 2 semanas para que
Aquí los esperamos en 2 semanas. Su traje listo.
Muchas gracias.
Que les vaya bien.
Bye. Hola.
Hola, buenas, ¿cómo están?
¿Cómo están?
Qué gusto de verlos nuevamente. Bueno, buenas noticias.
¿Trajes sí?
Tenemos sus trajes listos.
So
Claro que sí.
beautiful. Look at my suit. I love it.
¿Salió bien?
Sí, salió bien.
Ok, ahora. Bueno, ¿qué piensas de tu traje?
Me gusta mucho.
¿Todo bien?
Sí, gracias.
Ok, toma un chaleco.
Chamata.
Chamarrita. ¿Y qué te parece? ¿Te gusta muy bien?
¿Bien?
Perfecto. ¿Estás lista?
Muchísimas gracias, me gusta mucho. Gracias.
Para servirte, ya sabes. Bueno, ¿te quedó bien el pantalón? Sí, bien a gusto. ¿Listo? Ok.
Mariachis personalize their traje de charro with their choice of fabric, colors, and ornamentation. Of course, music wouldn't be complete without la danza or el baile. Originally, mariachi music and dance were inseparable. Each region in Mexico is represented by a different dance costume.
Really important to notice the fact that the dancers or any folkloric group works really hard and they train really hard. Some of the best groups practice every single day. Ourselves, we practice about 3 days a week. And it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of discipline, and I think that's one of the most important things in the folkloric group. And if you do not practice, you will notice on your stage. And I think that for us, the practice is the most important part of what we do.
The jarabe tapatio became so popular it was made the national dance of Mexico, the jarabe nacional, known in the United States as the Mexican hat dance. Mariachi music has had its hard times. Mariachis tell stories about how they were forced to play for handouts or were shooed away from classy locations.
Porque llegábamos a los lugares y entonces había clientes allí y nomás nos miraban que llegábamos y le echaban en ese tiempo una peseta a la pianola y a la rocola, ¿no? Y en ese tiempo con una peseta tocaba 5 piezas, ¿verdad? Entonces, para no aceptarlo, para que no llegáramos y tocáramos. Había gente también así y había otros que también no aceptaban, entonces ya se acababa la pianola y entonces ya seguíamos nosotros.
The very first experience I had performing professionally was in a cantina, you know. And my father, he knew that if he didn't allow me to play there, I probably would not have an opportunity to get into this music in a professional way. Even though they didn't pay me, it was sort of my apprenticeship at the time. And what happened one night, I was playing, and all of a sudden I heard this fighting going on, and I had heard that, you know, prostitutes would come there sometimes, and then before you know it, you hear a fight going on, you know, and I remember just sort of running out because I wanted to get out before I got hurt.
Some of the most difficult times I've had in the mariachi are playing outdoors in Plaza Garibaldi during wintertime. Most of the groups work a late night shift, and some groups work until quite late, like maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, if there are serenades, they'll play till daybreak. But if you're playing outdoors, it's real difficult because your fingers are cold and stiff, and the instruments go terribly out of tune, and the nylon strings and the steel strings go out of tune at different ratios. You know, terrible things happen to the trumpet when it's cold. But it's like everything else. You get used to it. You do what you have to do.
Thankfully, today mariachi music is seen as a positive attraction, a draw to upscale, trendy restaurants, nightclubs, and concert halls. Still, it's not easy being a mariachi, even today.
And most of the musicians that are making a living doing this are just cranking out song after day, year after year. I mean, I think the hardest thing in mariachi music is to keep your enthusiasm.
Yes, there are difficult times. It's a rough life. It's a tough life. You don't have any job stability. There's no job benefits. And so in the long run, for everything that I've done, I really don't have a lot to show for it now, except that I'm a very happy woman. Some of the tough things are just the physical endurance that you need. You go to gigs and sometimes you have 10 to 14 hours on weekends and come home and not feel my feet for 3-4 days. You'd be really tired, and then you have to go on and play at a restaurant till 2 in the morning and maybe have to get up again at 6 or 7 in the morning for another gig. Or when you thought that it was your day off, you had to go to a recording, or you have extra rehearsals, and you don't get paid for rehearsals. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, so it really taxes your physical strength. And let me tell you, the guys don't like to see a weak woman.
El trabajar, el viajar por todo el mundo, hay mucho cansancio físico en este grupo porque viaja uno mucho y trabaja uno todos los niveles, a veces teatros, a veces en pueblitos como aquí, a veces en el vil campo o casinos o bailes. Pero hay unos que llegan a los 60 y ya se sienten cansados. Por eso yo digo unos 30 años más o menos.
Fue difícil para mí porque la familia fue muy grande, fueron 7 de familia y era muy difícil salir a trabajar y dejarlos, pero pues tuvimos que hacerlo. A pesar de todo, salimos adelante con mucha dificultad.
While mariachi groups were overwhelmingly male, they were often accompanied by a female soloist. Las Coronelas is said to have been the first all-female mariachi group. They began performing in Mexico in the 1940s. Over the years, women have continued to gain acceptance and inclusion in the world of mariachi. In the United States, women of many cultures become mariachis, and some have even become musical directors.
Me, for instance, as an American woman, playing the trumpet, a male-dominating instrument, in a male-dominating music of mariachi, it's been very difficult, and it's taken a long time and to build respect, and I think I'm always going to have to do that.
Once I moved to LA and then started playing with Mariachi Los Camperos. All right, that was 1976. You know, I was the first woman, so I remember feeling like I was being looked at, stared at, like, but not in a very happy way, more in a sort of like, you know, I don't know if I feel really comfortable with this woman being next to me. But then, after about 3 months or so, once they got a feeling for letting me settle into the group, and then it changed drastically. It changed to not only acceptance, but excitement. Excitement that they had this woman in the group.
To be a mariachi makes me feel very, very proud of the music, of my heritage, of where I come from. Born and raised in East Los Angeles, it's been an awesome experience, wonderful.
One development that contributed to mariachi's rise in popularity in California and the Southwest occurred in 1961, when the University of California in Los Angeles became the first academic institution to teach mariachi music. Today, mariachi is so popular, it's offered in schools at all levels.
I think the whole movement here in the United States is inspirational. I think that's part of the reason it keeps me going. Those kids have such a love and a passion for this music, just like I felt. In my times, I was considered to be crazy, and it's just I was ahead of the game. I feel like so many more people understand where I was coming from now because of the fact that I was a 20-year-old feeling passionate about mariachi music, and now you've got 5-year-olds that want to grow up to be mariachis.
I've been singing since I was 2 years old, and now I am 8 years old. The best part is that I get to see people smiling, and that I know that they're very happy to know that I'm here and that I'm singing to them.
And if the arts is just one of those means in which they can achieve greatness, because we know that academic scores are enhanced by the fact that they learn music and they learn dance, or they are involved in theater, they're expressing themselves in such a positive way.
So I asked the school administration if I could start a mariachi class. And they said, well, if you can get 15 students to sign up, we'll fund the class. On the first day, 47 kids showed up. So there was tremendous response, surprised the school district. On the first day, I asked the students, how many of you play a musical instrument? None of them. After 2 years or 3 years, the kids started getting really good. By this point, I was enjoying the teaching of the music at this level. It had a tremendous impact on the community and on the students themselves.
La música mexicana se contagia desde niños. Ya de los niños empiezan a oír la música mexicana y empiezan a sentir la ebullición de su sangre, que tienen la sangre latina, como le nombran, pero es la sangre mexicana. La sangre, la misma que los llama a aprender nuestras raíces.
Cumplimos, no nos sabemos dejar. El que nacido en Ameca, orgulloso de ello está, como el que nació en Tequila, paladeando su mezcal.
Mariachi programs expand the cultural base of non-Mexican youth and help students of Mexican descent appreciate their roots. Mariachi is becoming the music of a new generation.
I started playing mariachi music at the University of Southern California. I started playing mariachi music because 2 of my brothers and 1 of my sisters had been playing mariachi. And I saw what happiness they brought to crowds, to my parents, to my family, and I wanted to partake in a part of that.
Mensajeros para quitar las penas, con sus trompetas, violines y guitarras.
The youngest students currently with the new set of beginners, age 8. The oldest student is age 18. It's an interesting age range that you don't find traditionally in instructional venues like elementary or secondary or high school. This is a community youth mariachi, which means We really have like 3 generations. This music was a folk music idiom that came from small rural towns in Mexico. And it usually was the grandfather, uncles, dad, and cousins all together.
I say that whether you're going to be a mariachi musician for life or just for fun as a avocation, you need to really practice and know your instrument.
I would say that the most important thing is to know your instrument first and a mariachi second. Because I've seen a lot of kids at the conferences I go to, and what hurts me the most is that some of these kids can just barely even hold the violin, terrible position, posture, but yet they want to come and play La Negra. So I would say learn your instrument well first, and then learn the folk music.
Another development that contributed to mariachi music's rise in popularity was the explosion of mariachi festivals, which began in San Antonio, Texas.
Mariachi music had a renaissance of popularity with the U.S. mariachi movement. The festival movement started in '79, and that was a real important signpost. Some people would say the birthplace of the festival and conference movement. From 1979 on, in the United States, they kind of developed a stock formula. One is their conferences, workshops. They have a gala concert, sometimes even a mariachi with a symphony. They'll have a mariachi mass. They'll have a mano a mano, a battle of the mariachis, kind of a contest. And they'll have a Garibaldi night, which kind of recreates the atmosphere of Plaza Garibaldi, where you have an open-air plaza with lots of groups playing at the same time. Kind of a real high confusion factor, because all the sounds of the different groups, mix together, but that's part of the excitement of the Garibaldi atmosphere as well.
The attitude toward mariachi music in the United States is a little different from that in Mexico. In Mexico, it is a traditional part of the culture, almost taken for granted. Here, in the United States, mariachi music is being rediscovered by Mexican Americans and appreciated by many Americans for its vitality. This procession is headed for Mariachi Plaza in the heart of Los Angeles, California. Sculptor Pablo Salas created this 40-foot-tall dome pavilion as a tribute to the mariachi. It was dedicated in 1998 on the day of Saint Cecilia, the patron saint of music.
The more we understand about somebody else's culture, I think we understand a little bit more about our own selves. And that's how we have to be interacting with all of this mass of people that we have here in California.
Mariachi music is a rich part of my culture. Every time I hear mariachi, it reminds me of who I am. I grew up watching my parents write and record mariachi songs to take to the recording studio.
En el año 70 empecé yo a cantar con mi esposo en el mariachi.
Como trabajábamos en la iglesia, entonces yo la comencé a oír que cantaba bien, y entonces ya la comencé a invitar yo cuando teníamos tocadas así en par, en bodas, en bautizo, en todas las ocasiones que había para la música del mariachi. Y fue cuando, en ese tiempo fue cuando comenzó a trabajar con nosotros, y ya comenzamos a grabar también.
Aquí principia la historia de un valiente mexicano que al humilde campesino siempre le ha dado la mano. A nuestro querido líder, tu valentía demostraste para hacerlo comprender hasta tu vida arriesgaste. Tú no crees en la violencia, la criticas con valor.
The end result is that Mexicans and Americans on either side of the border share and enjoy a rich musical tradition.
Y es una música que cura, una música que es medicina. Eso es lo bueno de la música del mariachi, porque es alegre, muy difícil, pero muy bonita.
Son mensajeros para quitar las penas, con sus trompetas, violines y guitarras, el guitarrón que llega al corazón, el mundo entero los aclama con amor. Es por eso que yo les rindo homenaje, son los amos de las canciones más bellas, con su traje bordado y sombrero ancho, son orgullo de mi tierra la más bella.
¡Que viva el mariachi!
¡Viva el mariachi!
¡Viva el mariachi!
¡Que viva el mariachi!
¡Que viva el mariachi!
¡Viva el mariachi!
¡Que viva el mariachi!
Y que viva el mariachi.
¡Que viva el mariachi!
¡Qué bonito, qué bonito!
Que me toquen esos sones jaliscienses y guapangos de mi huasteca querida. Traigo penas en el alma y otras más, que me curen estas muy grandes heridas. Los mariachis son amigos del amor y lo adornan con sus serenatas bellas, compañeros del dolor y del amor, trovadores en noches con estrellas. Que me canten mis hermanos los mariachis, que me canten hasta que amanezca el día. No me importa que repitan sus canciones, si me llenan todo el alma de alegría. Que me canten mis hermanos los mariachis, que me canten hasta que amanezca el día. No me importa que repitan sus canciones, si me llenan todo el alma de alegría.